Allman in the morning. Sounds Radio.
It's all over us.
Good morning, you bunch of drunks.
Like it always was.
So I'm going to go back to the Farmer's Almanac because I found something interesting in there for you individuals, and they deal with astrological signs, and they have a whole list of how certain signs are connected to a certain part of your body, which is actually pretty cool. Huh. Oh, yeah. It's in the Farmer's Almanac. And they also have how you can you can set your chicken eggs by the moon. That too. It's going to be at 7:35. I'll tell you all about that. Yeah, and we're going to talk about Hugh Hefner. So it's going to be 7:35. It's going to be just an amazing segment for you. But right now I need to deal with a couple things. One is our trusty social justice warrior, Donald J. Trump, releasing his tax plan yesterday. And you think to yourself, wait a minute, how can you say that that is a social justice warrior right there? Well, because you know what? A strong economy is a key to the social justice that perhaps people are looking for when it comes to giving everybody a stake in our economy. When you have a thriving, growing economy, you have more jobs and you have more people who are getting those jobs, and you have higher wages, higher earners, and you have everybody taking part in that, because that's truly the only way out of any kind of injustice that people feel in terms of what's happening to them in our society. And apparently there are people who are saying this is all about the injustice of America. Well, the injustice of America is the worst part about the so-called injustice of America is the fact that we know that, for instance, we've got millionaires who are talking about injustice in America, and we don't buy it. We've got millionaires who are talking about injustice in America playing in domes that are funded by money we earned because our governments have stolen it from us and then turned it over to rich NFL owners and rich football players who are playing in domes. Some of these domes, like for instance in St. Louis, are set up a block away from a black inner city where people are killing each other and robbing each other and dying every day. So if you really have an issue with the injustice in America, talk to your politicians who are handing over government money to NFL owners and multi-millionaire football players playing in the domes built on your backs. Maybe you ought to consider that. But to the point, though, trying to figure out what it is when they talk about injustice, what it is that these people want. The people at the Galleria who were protesting, because I'm trying to figure this out, because already, of course, we've had 8 years of a black president. And I know that even at the very beginning of his presidency, that just because you had a black president doesn't mean that, of course, all racism is over, but you sure acted like it. You sure acted like, well, now that we have a black president, this is all going to be cool and blah, blah, blah. And certainly you told us that removing Confederate monuments was going to help out, but apparently that hasn't helped out, because even after we're shrouding them and removing them, you're still bitching about injustice in America. So I don't really get it. So I'm trying to figure out what it is you want. I'm coming to the conclusion that do you want more advantages in the workplace? Because right now minorities have huge advantages in the workplace over whites with affirmative action and everything else. And so at that point, is it that you want more advantages in the workplace? Do you want more scholarship money that whites aren't getting? Because right now, if you're a black college student, you're in a better position right now to get scholarship money than a white college student is. Or acceptance into college. Is that what you want? You want more because right now, white kids are being accepted at a less rate than black kids are in college because of quotas. So I'm trying to figure out what it is you want. You want to, let's say, the guys at the Galleria, do you not want to be arrested when you trespass or break glass? Or I'm sorry, prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law? Because right now, you're not being prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. So I'm trying to figure out what it is these individuals want from us. Do you want a parking space closest to the Piggly Wiggly? I'm serious. You want me to fix your muffler? What do you want from me? You want a 2 large pizzas for the price of 1 from Pie? because I'm trying to figure out what the hell it is you want from us that you don't already have. And I'm not saying you have a parking space or a free pizza or whatever else, but the advantages in our economy that minorities have are clearly laid out there. I mean, it's right in front of us. We can see that. So what is the injustice? And I'll tell you one thing. There's nothing more unjust than a weekend of 17 black people dying at the hands of other black people in Chicago. That's pretty unjust, but that's not where your attention is. Your attention is on police officers and, like, me or whatever white person you can grab. And so I'm trying to figure out what it is you want. There are people right now talking about injustice, white people involved in these Black Lives Matters protests and all these kind of things, who probably have not gotten a job because of racial quotas or not gotten a scholarship because of quotas at college. So, I mean, this whole idea that somehow we live in this unjust society is baloney. Minorities have huge advantages in this society right now. So, again, what is it that you want? We just want you to stop killing us. It's like, pardon me? You want me to stop killing you, or police or whatever else? Because the numbers don't bear out that you're being killed by white people. It doesn't bear out. The numbers don't bear it out. So what the hell is your beef? And what's your beef with the flag and the national anthem, the signal sign of oppression? It's like, my Lord. And somebody called in earlier and said, well, why do they play the national anthem? Oh, so, okay, now, so next, what do we remove the national anthem because it offends you? You're still going to bitch about injustice when the reality is, and I know what people are going to say is, but you don't understand what it's like to be, you've never been blah, blah, blah. And that's true. But that doesn't mean I'm going to hand over my country to you or our country to you. And it certainly doesn't mean that I have to apologize for anything. I mean, we're all living in this society. But you know what? That's why President Trump's tax reform package is so important here to whatever injustice people feel. Because now you're running out of excuses at this point. You're running out of excuses. Because you're running out of things to complain about. Because at this point, I don't know. I mean, now now it's gotten to the point where you're hanging your hat on a guy who wears socks that portray cops as pigs, and you're protesting a case that even Barack Obama and Eric Holder didn't want to prosecute. So I mean, you guys are grabbing at straws at this point, and especially with all the things I just laid out there. And by the way, one thing is for sure. You've been ripped off by the NAACP, apparently, because there are a lot of A's in the NAACP, and you know what I mean by that, right? But one of them apparently is not advancement. How long has the NAACP been collecting money from you for the advancement of black people? How long? Has it been 50 years? How long has that been going on? So that's a pretty unproductive organization right there, especially since they have advancement in their name. What I'm trying to say is, whether it be the NAACP or black politicians or black athletes or Democrats, you have bought a bad bill of goods here. And you keep electing these people, you keep propping these people up. These multimillionaires, these football players don't give a crap about you. How can you possibly believe that these guys? I guarantee you, and as somebody called in earlier too, yesterday, said, I bet you if you asked a black football player taking a knee, if he could name one black person shot to death the night before, they couldn't do it. And of course they couldn't do it. I mean, with the exception of a handful of athletes who've given back to the community like LeBron James and others, the rest of these guys are playing in stadiums you paid for, or stadiums that actually took money that otherwise might have been used to hire more cops or hire more teachers or whatever it is. But instead, they're using your money. These white liberal guiltists are using your money to build stadiums for these multimillionaires to play in. So again, I don't understand what it is that these individuals want that isn't already out there. So so the quotas and affirmative action and all the things that give you an advantage. Now suddenly you turn around like that statue, take it down. It's like, really? Hey, Rob, thanks for calling the show. How you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty good. How you doing, Jamie?
I'm doing fine, thank you. What's up, man?
Well, I was listening to you talk to that young man, Terrell, and I know that there's a lot of things with the anthem. You know, he brought up that the Constitution wasn't written for us, the anthem wasn't written for us, but then when the 14th Amendment came in, that kind of erased all of the stuff before. It's just like anything that you build, there are things that you see in there, you say, okay, we've got to fix this, we've got to change that. There's certain things that we've got to tweak and we've got to make better, we've got to include this, we've got to include that. So when that happened, that kind of erased a lot of the stuff that, quote unquote, wasn't for us when it was originally written. So with all of that that's going on, I myself personally, I was never taught to be prejudiced, racist, bigoted, or anything like that. But at the same time, to recognize that there are certain injustices that are out there, but it is not to the degree that a lot of people are thinking. Like you said, the numbers do not bear out as far as cops killing us versus us killing ourselves. And if we can't get that second issue in order, us killing ourselves, we'll never be able to tackle the issue of the first one.
Right.
Because we've got to come together as a people, as a black people, but how are we going to be able to come together as our own people if every time we turn around we're trying to blame white people for trying to keep us back and keep us down? Because that's just not the case. I've had too many decent, great positions at jobs and stuff like that to sit here and say, oh, I was passed over because I'm black. Because I've had too many good positions to actually effectively say that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the absolute refusal to deal with that second issue that you points out is why there's such a disconnect among white people, because in terms of empathy or whatever else, because they don't understand why that you continue to ignore it and to bring it up makes you a racist. And I don't understand that. And of course, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I grew up in a very racially mixed university city where black people and white people pretty much made the same amount of money. That was, of course, back in the day when we had carburetor and we had the Camaro plant or right. What was it up there, and where we had people with a stake in the economy. And so I never saw. I saw only successful black people. I mean, when my dad wasn't around, the guy that picked me up to make sure I got to baseball practice was my black coach. So I mean, I never really saw that. And then of course we have white people like the people who run the Post-Dispatch, who simply their answer is just simply to move to Wildwood and never see any black people. But that's kind of how it works. But Rob, I got to go. Thanks for the